Hi, you're back.
Hey,
All right. Yeah, I can hear you now.
there we go. Okay.
Okay.
So, like, we have the same functions all, but in different orders. Um, is there another type that has our same functions in a different order?
Yeah. So it's so INFJ and ISTP, and there's also ENFJ and ESTP. So for
Okay.
you, um, so actually, it's kind of funny because if you change all four letters,
Mm-hmm.
it's still the same functions except in the opposite order.
Okay.
So INFJ has NIFETISE, and for ESTP, it's SETIFENI.
Okay. So, have you interacted a lot with, um, like an ES? You said TP?
ESTP,
Mm-hmm.
I probably have. I mean, it's not a whole lot. I suspect a former coworker might be an ESTP. Um, and though, yeah, those were kind of fun interactions. He would always like just kind of joke around the office and play pranks and um, invite me country line dancing, and then just kind of make fun of the other people there. And he had made up his own phrases just to be fun and try to get other people on board with it. And, uh,
That's fun. Um, do you have any friends, like that you were friends with before you got into MBTI that are also now interested in MBTI?
I mean, not quite on the same level. I mean, they know I talk about it a lot, and so like I've had a couple of friends who've had these moments. They every once in a while, everyone at some point takes an online test and then ends up not doing much with it. Well, I've had a couple of friends who know that I'm into it, and so they would take the test and tell me their result just because they figured I'd be interested,
Mm-hmm.
which I was. But then like they'll tell me they got INTJ, and I'm thinking, no, there's no way they're an INTJ. Um, so then it kind of gives me the chance to kind of explain like how unreliable certain tests are, and what an INTJ really is, and how I just suggest they look into other types like like ISTJ or ISFJ. And I do have one friend that I'm pretty sure now is an ISFJ, who's actually one of the quieter ISFJs, and she actually says if it does fit her, and so she's kind of looking into that, and but I don't really have any. I mean, that's kind of the closest that I've ever come to getting like actually getting other friends into MBTI. Um, not really taking it that seriously, but just kind of interested in like figuring out what type they are beyond just the one test.
Hmm. Yeah, I have some friends like I would like to know their type, but I don't think I could even get them to take the test.
Yeah.
They're not interested in that. So I have a few friends that they are interested in like psychology. So the personality types, they're like, okay, I'll look at it. Um, but like one doesn't put very much stock into it, I don't think. I think it's just something she finds interesting, but um and also I think because her personality type has been different times that she's taken the test, and
Mm.
she thinks her personality's changed. So, like, well, the way our personalities manifested or we've matured changes, but the core of who we are is the same.
Yeah. Yeah. Whenever I get that, then I could. It kind of gives me the chance to explain to them, that personality type is the same throughout your life, and it's based on your natural preferences, and that it is easy to mistype and get a different result if you feel like your values are different throughout your life. Because like the exact same thing happened to me. Like I would test as ISTJ, INTJ, and then back to ISTJ and then ISTP. But I would explain to people, well, that's just inaccurate test results that are showing up that way because of how I'm answering the questions. But that there is one single type that I know I am now. That's based on my natural preferences.
Yeah. Yeah, like, I had problems with some of the questions because it's like, do you base your decisions on your feelings or do you follow your heart? And it's like, no, of course I use logic, I really resented that whole F thing. I mean, even though, like, my older siblings said I was too emotional, like, all my life growing up. But, the whole idea, like, that I just base things off of my emotions or whatever, it's like, that doesn't make sense. No, I have values and I want to stick to those values, and to me, those values are logical, so of course I'm going to say that I use logic. But then when I found out,
Yeah.
the F, it's not just emotional based, but it's also values. I'm like, okay, that makes more sense. It's, because, like, certain questions, like, do you consider other people's feelings or how things are going to affect them? Like, well, yeah, but I didn't think of that as being feeling. I just saw that as being considerate.
Yeah.
And it didn't occur to me that other people wouldn't unless they were just being rude or, a bad moment or something.
Yeah.
I think I pretty much covered everything. Well, except for I was gonna ask you, like, you have, like, any pet peeves or do you see any shortcomings in the MBTI? But,
Yeah.
like, those things are more like with the people who dominate the internet more than necessarily the MBTI system itself.
Oh, I see. Hmm. Most of what I see though is more of a product of just internet culture than most of the
Right.
typology culture. I mean, it's anyone who's into a certain genre is just going to be like kind of Nazi-ish about that. So you're always going to run into trolls and people who are just using it to using whatever it is just uh, to make themselves look good, or um, people just wanted to pretend that they're an expert in the topic. That's going to be true in any internet forum you go onto. Um, but and I don't really have a problem with people claiming to be experts. Um, I know I myself have, like, even though I haven't paid for the official MBTI, I haven't done the MBTI with a practitioner or anything like that. And yet I still advocate that that is probably the most accurate way to get yourself typed. And I know, but I can, at the same time, I can relate to people who just don't want to pay for it because I never because I never did. So is to me it still is just like kind of its own little um, pop culture phenomenon that's obviously one of the more complex ones and has merit and has a professional aspect to it, um, that most people within the community seem to ignore. But,
Yeah. I think it's interesting. I guess sometimes there's just so much of the pop culture mixed in. Uh, Sometimes it's tricky trying to weed it out, or, like, if I want to share it with somebody else.
Yeah.
I'm really careful about directing them to sources that I think are good, so that they're not like Googling it for themselves and
Yeah.
completely wrong idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, that was all I had.
Okay. Yeah. And me personally, I'm kind of on the fence about the whole function fetish because on the one hand, I recognize that, well, yeah, it was all based on Carl Jung's cognitive functions, that the 8 functions. I know that the MBTI was, that's what the types are made of. It's like the functions make up the types. So it would make sense that you want to use the functions to be able to identify the functions to be able to type people. But I've also seen in reality how that often doesn't work because people will, if they want to be a certain type, then they can see the function. They'll try to see the functions within themselves, even though they're not actually preferring those functions. Um, yeah,
Even though like I was confused about the NE, like I definitely relate with the NI more, but since I think sometimes when you don't have a function, like, or not using it a lot, like the NE, it's harder to understand and grasp some of the definitions of it
yeah,
and see, oh, yes, that's me, or no, that's not me. I think, uh, or the TETI, I had a hard time trying to figure those out.
yeah,
And so, yeah, it's like you have to really, I think if you use it, it's easier to understand it when you're researching it. And then if it's somebody else's function that you don't really use much, it's too hazy, I think. Um,
yeah. So, I mean, if anything, it would just be the idea that people try to be their own experts when there is um, a professional way to do it. Um, whenever somebody on the forum asks, what's the best way to get yourself typed, you get like tons of different answers. People are posting like, links to function tests, um, and then people take the test and they and they get wrong results. So it's like, well, why even post that link in the first place? It kind of like diminishes anybody's confidence in anyone's ability to know what they're talking about.
but yeah, like I've taken the function test, and anytime I get the function test, INFJ ends up at the bottom of the three possibilities. I get, and I think it was an ENFP, an INFP, and then you might be an INFJ. And because of the way um, it answers for whatever reason, it thinks an E is stronger when I took the function test.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's because I didn't understand the questions that were testing how much an E or an I was using. Because to me, the nuances between the two, I didn't quite understand them. So now that I understand an E better, I think I'm going to take the function test again just to see
Mm-hmm.
the results have changed at all.
Well, what I've noticed from when most people take that functions test, they they score almost equally on the extroverted and introverted attitudes of the same function. So like, I tend to score high on both TI and TE, and also SE and SI,
Yeah.
and then both my NI and NE are also really low, and my FI and FE are really low.
hmm
Um,
Yeah,
yeah.
like I think I forgot who it was that was on NF Geeks, and he made a video, and he was saying that um, if feeling is your first function, then you use a lot of both FE and FI, even if FE is your predominant one.
Mm.
And I thought, well, that was kind of an interesting theory. Um, so I don't know if he was like saying that instead of having shadow functions, that you were still using more FI than like uh, NE if that was like your second function. Um, just because you're a feeler predominantly.
Hmm. So that makes me wonder if there's a difference between the functions you actually use in real life versus the functions you prefer, and what if that's what the shadow functions are. Because they say everyone uses all 8 functions at some point.
Well, yeah. And like
You know?
most personality things, they'll say like everybody is a blend of all these things. It's just everybody's a unique blend.
Yeah.
Um, so like when I first heard about shadow functions, I'm like, okay. And it's very formulaic, which I guess is kind of good. I mean, like the pattern of introverted, extroverted, um, the axis between like feeling versus thinking, sensing, is it? Yes, so sensing and intuition are on the same axis.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know. I think maybe it'd be kind of interesting if they weren't actually on an axis like that. And maybe there's other types that we miss with the MBTI because they don't follow all the formulas that we're currently using.
I think that's kind of where socionics comes into play, and why so many people are into that. People who are into the functions will study socionics because that goes deep into the nuances of the functions and how the functions interact. And it's also why I'm not really interested in most aspects of socionics, because it goes a little bit too deep into it and tends to go way further into theoretical stuff than actual reality.
Yeah. Well, like I know, my dad was really into like the four temperaments, sanguine, melancholy, uh,
Oh, the
and
yeah,
I forget what the other one is. And
yeah,
I was reading it, and like they said that there's actually a fifth one, the supine, but a lot of people who are that they'll test as melancholic or sanguine.
hmm.
And so I don't know. I thought, well, maybe there's actually other hidden types within MBTI. And some people will talk about the subtypes.
Yeah,
And it's like, well, maybe that's just like somebody doesn't want to own up to the fact that the system has problems with it, so we're just gonna say they're subtypes
yeah,
and the uh, nuances or inconsistencies.
yeah. Well, one thing I have noticed now that I'm thinking about it is in the MBTI community, people just do not acknowledge experiences and backgrounds, culture, that those things come into play in differences. And people are too often, when they try to compare like two different INFJs, explain the difference as like subtypes or different Enneagram types. And it's like they probably just grew up in different environments and had different experiences. That's why they seem different.
Well, yeah, I mean, the different environments, different experiences, and even individuals, like, yeah, there are 16 types, but everybody's an individual. We're not going to just have 16 clones.
Yeah.
So, of course, there's going to be some differences in between. And even, like, whether you're looking at the functions or the type as a whole, it's only, even those are just an aspect of our personality. They're not
Yeah.
full spectrum of everybody's personality.
Yeah.
I think that's one reason why I was interested when I first heard the phrase cognitive function, because it's like how our minds work.
Hmm.
It doesn't necessarily say what our hobbies are going to be.
Yeah.
I think how our minds work, like if you're a sensor versus an intuitive, there's certain hobbies or activities that you'd be more drawn to because your mind can grasp it better or easier.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's other people who have personalities they like the challenge. So maybe getting into the theoretical is more challenging and interesting for a sensor. You know, even though some people would think a sensor shouldn't be drawn to something theoretical.
Yeah. But yeah, it's like they talk about it as if I were to, if I were to say, yeah, I'm an ISTP, TI is subtype, Enneagram, 9-wing, 8, 5-wing, 6, 3-wing, 2, SP, SX. If I just throw out all that they would be able to predict what kind of person I am.
Yeah. And that's crazy. I mean, they might be able to understand a part of who you are, but not the full.
Yeah.
You can't totally formulate people into these little categories.
Yeah.
So if the videos automatically saved to YouTube, or because they're streaming, or how does that work? You have to edit?
Yeah. Well, I think what it does is it does post it to my channel. But what I do though is I set it to private, and and then I take those and then I edit them and post the edited segments. So that's actually what I'm planning to do. Um, so it'll give me a chance to like edit out those little technical flaws that we had earlier, and so.
Yeah, I wasn't sure because I've seen some of your videos where people would be cutting in and out, and I didn't know if you just like posted as is because the breaks were just so sporadic throughout,
Yeah.
or if it was because it just like automatically uploaded and saved.
Oh. Yeah. If I just upload it as is, it'll just like upload as like just one huge chunk of video. And so I kind of figure people aren't going to want to watch like a whole 3-hour video. So
Yeah.
I'm just going to split it up.
Okay.
So and I'll have some time to do that later this weekend. So maybe I'll just post it like Sunday night or something.
Yeah, I don't want to keep you up too late. We did a lot more work for you the longer we talk. Okay, well, thank you.
Yeah, it was definitely a good time. Have to do this again sometime.
Bye. Yeah, or like even I know some people in the community do hangouts without recording or anything, just to talk and hang out.
Oh yeah, have you ever joined those? 'Cause I haven't done
No.
that in a while. Okay.
Yeah. Now that I have a nice cell phone that can record and everything, or has a camera, then I plan on doing that.
Okay. Oh, cool. Yeah, maybe I'll see you in one of those hangouts sometime.
Okay. Cool.
Okay.
Good night.
Well, yeah, have a good night and rest of your weekend.
Thank you. You too.
All right.